All right. When you make the Inc. 5000 list, not once, but twice as an IT firm servicing hundreds of clients, you're clearly doing something right. Today on the Go4CEO channel podcast, I'm joined by Jody Jankovsky, founder and CEO of Blackline IT, to talk about how smart, well managed technology can transform the way you lead, scale, and protect your business. Jody, thank you so much for coming on the Go4CEO channel. How are you?
I'm doing great, John. Thanks a lot. It's a pleasure to be here and talking to you about anything and everything that has to do with running a business or technology. I'm all in. So
Awesome, awesome. I love it. Well, we met offline in such a cool atmosphere, a group that's being put together and a bunch of winners, right? It was so cool to kind of be rubbing elbows with guys like you and other gentlemen that are doing big things. And it could be C-suite level places or CEO spaces, and it's interesting when you come and talk about these things, right? It really gives a genre of like, hey, these things are possible, or here's the learning lesson. So we always like to
yeah,
start with kind of the ideation, right? So Blackline IT, it's a cool name. So I'd love to understand, where that came from. But where did that come from? Just being in the industry, or had you made a pivot in your career? Share us with us a little bit of the story of the beginning part.
sure. Absolutely. The beginning of Blackline as a company started because of my disenfranchisement with the way in which small mid-sized companies were basically being provided IT, how they bought it, how the counsel they received, the service companies that were out there were very poor. And so I went from my corporate background, and also through college, I had my own little IT company, and I decided to do a shift and focus a business which just helps small and mid-sized companies. That was my roots. I worked with my dad back in the 70s and 80s with his little software company, and we worked with small companies, helping them take technology and make it an enabler, drive real value as opposed to being toys. Technologists love technology because it's cool, it's fun, it can do all kinds of cool things. Um, and what was lost was, hey, these aren't toys, these are business tools, you know? And so I started the business 32 years ago now to focus on that mission, which was to serve the underserved and to transform lives with digital technology. The name Blackline came from, when we first started the company, we were called Advocate Consulting,
Mm,
back in the days when you were an IT consultant. And as we progressed, there happened to be another big advocate in the Chicago area that happened to be healthcare. So they thought our company was a healthcare consulting, not technology consulting. So we had to pivot and create a new name. And we came up with a Blackline. And if you were to open up your computer right now, or even email on your phone, there's something that everybody sees and you don't even know it's there anymore. It's ubiquitous to everything that we do. And that is the cursor. The cursor is the black line. And if that black line is blinking, you are ready for business. And so we wanted people to remember our name with the blinking black line and say, black line, they keep us in business and ready for business when that thing is blinking. So that was kind of the genesis of the name itself. And then also, my firm in general.
awesome, awesome. Well, look, I feel like the experiences lead to things, right? And having that name represent something, and it's always a conversational piece, right? As you just shared right now, how cool is it that you can kind of share that with potential clients, or even bring it up again to current clients to remind them of that kind of mindset of what Blackline really offers, right? So,
Yeah.
all right, awesome. Well, hey, look, on the Go4CEO community, we always we're interested in kind of seeing, all right, well, all right, you start a business, what are some of the things that you start thinking of? How did you get your first client? What are some ways that kind of started for you? And was there some bumpiness to it, which I'm sure there was. So tell us a little bit of that, and the going into the first client scenario.
Yeah. So like a little bit about the journey itself. So it was bumpy. I'm a technologist. I'm an engineer. I'm a computer scientist. Imagine being a computer scientist and then trying to be also a business person and building big business acumen. And so from first customer perspective, it was I already had some business that I had started over the years So it made those connections, which is we all have, right? We build our network. We build that network in college, right? We build that network with maybe our first couple of jobs that we have. And I essentially did the same thing. So the beginning of the business was network, basically word of mouth and just making and going to networking groups. And then that slowly created some momentum. And when you do a good job, then comes word of mouth, right? Then you get people who will refer you. Then I could start to add a few more people into the mix. And so it was really kind of a slow grind. At the time, digital marketing, there wasn't a thing of digital marketing, right? It was mostly word of mouth, or if you wanted to do direct marketing, you wanted to do advertising, that wasn't really something that I even understood, to be quite honest. And then as far as the evolution happened, over years, I would say the greatest challenge was learning the other business functions of a business, learning and understanding those to the level that I could make good decisions around. That was where the pain usually was. If I needed better financial or accounting, I mean, actually have accounting background as well. That was what I studied in school. It was computer science and accounting. That helped, but that didn't help when you need really finance help. What's trending, what's happening when it comes to accounts receivable balances or funding with lines of credit because of the way that we're using suppliers. And there was all these things that you don't have necessarily to do when you're just programming, you're building systems, you're integrating. That's great. I was really, really good at that, like coming, because I had a lot of background on that. I didn't have a lot of experience in just running a business and contract review or building contracts or creating customer service infrastructure or HR policies. I mean, you can name every aspect of the business, as you probably can attest. That is the hardest grind I have found over the 30 years, was becoming an expert in fields which I wasn't trained.
Yeah,
So
they don't really give us businesses in a box, pull out this area or this hat that you have to wear, and so many hats you have to wear, especially as a small business owner, right? But I will say it's interesting, right? Because your personality, meeting you in person and your personality here on tape or on video shines through. And computer science and accounting doesn't really lend to a person that necessarily has that type of a dynamic side. So selling, we'll start with that side, right? So you know that you have
okay.
skill sets and you have these things that you want to offer small businesses, and you have the acumen and the competency from working with your dad and some of the things that you've been able to do and getting out of school. But selling's a different breed, right? So working with people, understanding their fears or their problems, and then creating solutions as an entrepreneur. What was one of those first things that you identified as like, hey, here's something I could provide a solution for, and that became like a sales, pitch?
That's a great question. And I think if I was to get philosophical on you here a little bit, when a business is, let's call it technician driven, and you could call this any business. You're an attorney. You're the technician as an attorney, as well as a plumber or electrician or an architect or a financial planner. Whatever the technical aspect of is that you're providing is one facet. Becoming a salesperson, completely different part of the brain. And that was really something that I had to really study and understand and rewire. Like I'm kind of a naturally outgoing person, which doesn't,
So
but
yeah,
you
it's
still have,
an outgoing person, right? So share us a little bit more.
yeah. So what I found is that in my own experience, as well as those of other founders and business owners that I've met with, is that tends to be a very big hurdle. It's like if you have sales capabilities, you may not necessarily, that's a different set of skills as opposed to being, let's just call it the technician, the person who is deploying whatever the services happen to be inside of the business, like a more technical focus that I would have. I found that those trying to have both those things at the same time, that like creating another skill and
Mm.
focusing on that skill of sales. And I found that to be very challenging, even with being somebody that could easily engage in a conversation with people. What I found is my initial, like, let's call it fallback, was always system thinking. Oh my gosh, the technology can do all these really cool things, and it's this and it's that. And oh my gosh, let me tell you about how this software works. And while I was excited about it, and I think that the other person could glean some passion and like, I want to work with this guy because he seems to be really into it, that didn't necessarily translate into really good sales because
Mm.
it's a different skill set. And I had to learn over years and years that let's just call it not necessarily sales techniques, like going to a, I don't know, sales training thing. It was more like, how do you communicate value of technology, the value, the outcomes, without always bringing in the systems? Now that was the key aha moment for me about 7, 8 years ago. It's like, wait a second, I'm communicating about this all wrong. we as a company are communicating this all wrong. We're focusing on the trees and not the forest. We're focusing on the systems that are like, um it'd be like going into a car dealership, let's say. And as soon as you walked in, the car dealer just all he wanted, or the salesperson, all he wanted to do is pop open the hood and talk to you about horsepower and torque ratios and shifting capacities and blah. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I know that that's part of it, but I just want to look cool in a cool car so that I can pick up chicks, so I can show up to the country club and people like it's completely different. Like, people buy cars for all kinds of reasons, I know, but I'm
Yeah.
I'm being a little bit, exaggerating here, but you understand the concept, right? Which is, if you go right to like, what does that person actually trying to accomplish by walking into that dealership? Do they just need a ride? Do they need the cheapest ride because I got to get to A to B? Or are they trying to make a statement by buying that Mercedes or that BMW? Right? It's the same with just about everything else. What does the person want? What are they trying to accomplish? What's the outcome? Technology is like walking into a super Walmart. It's just like overwhelming how many aisles and aisles there are of tech. What are you actually trying to accomplish? And that became the differentiator for me. And actually, I think that really has been a differentiator for the customers that we serve, because now we're talking a different language. We're actually talking their language instead of ours. So that's something that I've learned from the sales perspective.
Yeah, no, the simplification is so key, right? Taking it with your service is such a technical side, and if we're not right brain, left brain type scenario, and we don't know which one we are, and you don't know who you're talking to, you got to figure that out right while you're having that conversation. But finding the results and how the
Mhm.
pathway to it is not so important, but the results are. So it's really cool to hear how you started to develop that scenario and get that sales conversation along with your competency of who you or what you could provide, right? So really
Yeah, it's
cool.
like for example, my goal and our team's goal. Luckily, I'm not as I've got people now who do more of the sales than I do, but the mindset is, we don't want to be talking about systems or software until at the very end. Like, we'll have 3, 4 different meetings with clients, and the goal is to not bring up systems, because
Mm.
that's not important. My hope is, yeah, we need technology to solve, what the challenge is. But we want to listen and hear, what are they trying to accomplish? And that sounds like a cliche, but in the technology field, that gets glossed over. Let's focus on outcome, and then the technology will match to it. And so we want to wait till it's like, we have to really understand what the whole picture is first. And any business I does really well doing the exact same thing. You could just, swap out whatever company, whatever industry. It's very similar, right? If you focused on the banking products that you offer without really like that you're right. That's you're doing the banking side of things. I'm not sure how strategic you get with them, but you're
Mhm.
probably going to be finding out what's going on in their business. What type of a product do they need to get what they're looking to do, as opposed to, let me show you my menu of all the, banking products that we have, right? It's the exact same thing. And I think that's what's been missing in our field for since its beginning. And I've been here since the beginning. I mean, 1979 is when I started. I was 12. I've seen the entire evolution of technology that we're using today. I've been a part of that evolution the entire time. And our industry sucks at communicating and connecting value to what businesses really need.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, right, you take those personalities of, IT professionals and, like you said, computer science and accounting and all these things, right? It's very technical, dry. There's not really like a storytelling scenario that you could go through. But once you've acquired clients and once you've built relationships and once you've done the services and built those processes, I think then you could switch, which is what you just shared a little bit earlier. Light bulb went on like, oh, here's my story. Here's how the results can be shared in a way that the person's actually going to learn and gravitate to it. And obviously, then you stand out as a different type of IT firm in communicating your brand and everything that you do. So I love it. In the sense of building a business to a level of where you're at, you know, that first client, all right, you had to learn so many things, and probably the second and the fifth and the 20th client, right? Um,
Yeah.
what were some of the areas that were the most challenging? Was it, starting to charge for your time and the complete service of IT, or was it lining up the jobs so that there was flow between execution? What were some of the challenges in that scenario?
Some of the especially with in the early days, there were a number of clients that I was still young. I was 25 when I started my business. And think about a 25-year-old, right? My son's 26, and I'm thinking, could he ever do what I did? I don't know. Different world, we got a different world now than we did back then. But I'm working with organizations which are established and they need a solution. And I came in as a technologist, and what I've learned about myself and have since learned is tied closely to what we've already been talking about, is that when I'm focused on the systems or uh, the technologies themselves, I would often get that I'm building, I'm creating things for them, I'm automating, I'm excited about that automation. And then the business person would be like, but I didn't want that automated. You know, I didn't, that's not what I was looking for. I see the value in what you did because, and, but as a business person, like, now you're expecting me to pay for that.
Yeah.
And it was this being a purist as a technologist, what most technologists are, they're very like elegant, pure solutions. And we got to do this the right way. I'm putting that in air quotes. That was a really big challenge with those first few customers, that it was dialing back this idea of building something, um, let's just call it unique and elegant, but not matching what the business leader and what that business really needed. That was like, because why that had to change was when they don't want to pay the bill.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh crap, I can't operate this way. I can't operate like, but this is the right thing. The right thing to do is to automate this extra step, or right, create this flow between this system and that system. And the business person's like, but I didn't budget for that, and I don't want that, and I don't want to pay for it. It's kind of like showing up with that car again, right? And going, oh yeah, you're going to pay $5,000 more because we got this pinstriping and this enhanced exhaust system. Like, oh, you got the turbocharger. And it's like, I didn't want the turbocharger, the enhanced, exhaust. I didn't want the detailing. I didn't want the leather treatment on the inside. I didn't want any of that. I'm not paying for it. It's understand, like, that seems like basic. right? Like now, from my perspective, I'm, 58, been in business a long time. I'm like, but in the early days, it was that it took some, clobbering upside the head to realize that business leaders have a completely different, that they're architecting their own businesses very precisely.
Mhm.
They know all that's going. I got to automate this one piece here because it's driving some inefficiency, or I need some streamlining. There's too much manual. Or I need access to data that I don't have, because they're trying to solve a very specific problem. And the engineer and most technology companies will descend and be like, we're going to tell you what you need to automate. There's the difference. And I bet you, if they're, whoever the listeners and watchers of this are out there, they've gone through technology projects and initiatives before, where vendors will descend on it and try to basically change their business to match their solutions. That's very common. And that took some time to go through the early stages with a number of customers. In the first 5 years, there was a lot of that going on until, I had enough bruises and ego bashes, and then also the dollar impact of that, was finally like, okay, I got to match this. And that was a big aha. And that was probably, I would say that was five to, 7 years into what I was doing. So I was still pretty young, and the business is pretty young. So hopefully that answers and gives, kind of a flavor for that.
No, a lot of context in that. I mean, and a lot to learn. When you have this type of business that is so technically driven, you're talking to someone. I'm curious, I guess, to go a little bit deeper to give the audience more of a flavor of, okay, hey, you're in a type of space where you see things, but you're trying to, in a way, sell or convince the client that, hey, this is a need, this is possible. They've fixated on, there's a reason I called Blackline. I need this specific service, but you see all these other areas. Do you share it in a consultative manner? Is it a timeline of introductions that you started to pattern this out, where you said, hey, I see 7 different things, but he wants to address A and B, but I can share with them some education, or what was that style over the years that it's transitioned?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would boil it down to education. So education we lead with. So we lead with education because of the gap that we've found over all these years that I've been helping businesses. The the understanding of the technology, or the technology solutions, or what's possible, um, understanding of that gets in the way of any technologist providing a solution. Because if you don't understand the framework, or the industry, like I do, or like our, my competitors and colleagues do, well, then the challenge to offer solutions that really match what they need are going to be met with skepticism.
Mm.
So education always is the first component. And that's all. We basically do that with no charge, because we want an educated buyer, because an educated buyer is one that's now sees the value proposition and then makes a decision in confidence. And if we can do that without selling them anything, I know that sounds, it's like when you go to school, like in most business schools or backgrounds I've seen, you're going to take that law class, right? Or you're going to take that accounting class. You're going to take something that helps you understand a way of running certain aspects of a business. You're going to find you're going to get some education about the domain. And most business leaders uh, don't get the education about the domain of technology. They might learn about specific technologies, but not the domain. So let's take for example, when it kind of dovetailing what you had said, a business leader will come to us, and they'll come to us with a pain. That usually is what, like, we're not getting support, not timely. It seems like things are broke, and when they fix it, it still comes back. I'm not getting counsel about what we should be doing, where we should be going. And it seems like there's always a surprise. And so those are all symptoms. And so what we do is we take all those symptoms and we say, let's show you the ideal and why you feel what you're feeling. Now, if you start with that, as opposed to just going right to, well, we offer these services and we'll take care of all of that. And that's what we found to be more effective is let's first dissect and give you an idea of how the technology environment is structured from let's call it from a business level, not the technology itself level. Because what you're experiencing as business leaders is the symptom of the disease, not the disease itself, right? So if you're seeing things in your business which are breaking, and there's a gut that says it seems like they're just not being proactive enough to solve this as a problem before it's a problem, right? Now, your gut as a business person is right, because in the tech field, there's a whole set of disciplines around proactivity, which are fundamental to running and having good technology within an organization. Just like changing the oil and rotating the tires on your car and getting it in for regular inspections, that keeps the truck on the road, right? Because the truck is what's generating the revenue and the value for the business. And so you do preventative maintenance. That's being proactive as opposed to reactive. And it's the same concept translates into technology. You should expect a certain level of proactivity with those providers that are providing you with technology solutions. And then you can ask those questions. So our job is to point out and say, you should expect proactivity, just like you would expect proactivity with your financial planner, which is, let's not wait until the stock market crashes to see that I'm diversified properly. Let's get ahead of that, right? Let's be proactive. And if they weren't proactive, be like, I just lost 20% of my value, and you didn't have me in other possible asset classes or whatever, I'm not a financial planner. And you would naturally be like, I need a proactive financial planner, so that by the time something happens to react to, you've already got the foundation correct. Mm-hmm. It is exactly the same thing for the technology field, but up to this point, it's the industry is not educating the business leaders today that that's what they should expect. And I feel like that's one of my primary objectives now, is to say, okay, after 45 years of doing this, this is what you need to know so you can drive your technology strategies through your organization confidently and hold people accountable and not have these outcomes that don't match your expectations or your budget. That is now my basically that's my second career, is now educating business leaders about, and I just kind of gave one example of proactivity. There's a lot more, but it's a similar concept, so that business leaders can go into negotiations with us, my firm. They can go into negotiations with going, now I understand what I'm buying and why I'm buying it. I don't have to understand the technologies themselves, but I see where the technology fits or the service fits that keeps my truck on the road, right? Gotcha. I buy that truck from you. I get a preventative maintenance program that makes sure that I got brakes and tires rotated and oil changes and spark plugs replaced. Got it. Because I'm gonna have a much higher rate of reliability upon my trucks. It's natural. You're like, yep, I know why I'm doing it. Well, in the tech field, you get in, the business leaders get inundated with stuff. They don't even know why they're buying it. They get sold it. There's a really good salesman on their side. He's trying to get his quota. So he sells you something you don't need. And then you find out later you overbought and those licenses aren't even being used. We had a manufacturing customer we went into, did an audit, about 70 million, manufacturing firm. They were spending $335,000 on technology they weren't using. $335,000 a year of technology they weren't using because it was uncontrolled tech purchasing, not centralized, no governance, no controls in place. And what I just said just now has nothing to do with running technology, has nothing to do with being a technologist. It's management of technology. So it kind of all dovetails into that same question about education. What should you expect? And then what are the real outcomes of it? And at least 50%, and that's not an exaggeration, at least 50% of the companies that we go into, they've got significant overspend in tech that they're not even using. They overbought, licenses unused. Like, why did you get the platinum plan on that device or on that? So you're not even close to needing a platinum plan for that because somebody sold them. You need that. You need the double fuel injected exhaust, skibbernator, crabinator on fire. You need that. And you're like, okay, I need it. And then somebody comes and like, you didn't need that in order to get from A to B with you just didn't need it. Pull that off and reduce that cost. So it falls down to education because most business leaders don't know that they're being swindled.
So many nuggets. I mean, obviously, I appreciate you going a little bit deeper and really kind of sharing the context, right, of how you get into the marketplace, how your team starts developing the education system, how they proactively put themselves in front of the client, educate, and then that translates into business and obviously longevity of a client and the length of time they stay with you is obviously evident in building a real business with sustainability. So, I will say there's a little bit of a secret here that you haven't shared yet, and only I know personally, but why don't we share the book? Because you said you've transitioned recently, and I want to go into marketing and now this book that you have
Oh,
and how you're able to combine those two, and what are some of the ways that you're approaching the marketplace now, being more of a seasoned business with your book and just the marketing edge.
yeah. I've got a copy of it here just as as a little show and tell. Um, so
The name of it?
it's called TQ, or Technology Intelligence. It's
Okay.
the business leader's guide to thriving in the intelligent age. The intelligent age being moving into this age of AI is the intelligent age. The
Mhm.
information age, just to give a little background. So the information age was what we've been in for the past 40 years, which is systems and technologies, hardware and software, let's call it focused on and its objective of the collect and manage data and information. Okay, so data gets collected and managed and organized, like people are entering that data into systems. It gets moved around through networks and the internet, etc. And that has been the primary focus of the entire technology industrial complex up until the last 5 years, has been being sure that companies can efficiently move information, data and information. The intelligent age is now taking what we've built over decades digitally, and now it becomes an intelligent agent co-pilot for us as businesses to not just usually the intelligence was left to the human. Give me information and present it to me. Let's say a dashboard. Think of all the business leaders out there using dashboards. Dashboards require your interpretation of what the dashboard means, the trend, the ratios, right? What's going on in a market, up and down. But that's all the intelligence is on you. And that's important. The intelligent age is there's another brain that now can look at the same information and it can give you insights you couldn't see. That is a completely new world that we're moving into. Not only can it get insights, not only can it offer trends and things that you couldn't see, it can do things better and faster than you can and your team can. It is so monumental of a shift because I've been in this business for a long time. This is a big one. This is a tectonic shift in the way technology is used, understood, and deployed. And if there was already a weakness in the field of understanding the way technology is deployed and the outcomes you require and the knowledge gap that I'm talking about. If there was already one in the information age, it is going to be accelerated and made even worse for the business leader in the intelligent age. You're going to be outmaneuvered. You're going to be outmaneuvered. You're already outmaneuvered. And this book is intended to give a framework like EQ. It's TQ. IQ, EQ, now TQ. So you got intelligence, then you have emotional intelligence. You combine that to be really good leaders. Now have TQ, have a framework that can be leveraged by business leaders to get the outcomes they want and hold this technology industrial complex that surrounds you, hold them accountable for the outcomes because they're thinking in systems. You need outcomes, you need leverage. And that's what this book is about, is gaining back leverage in a framework. Just like every other business has got frameworks. They got frameworks with you can exist inside of. Some that come to mind are like in accounting, you've got GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. GAAP is a framework. Okay. You look at professional engineers, and they have very specific frameworks that they follow that have to do with basically physics and engineering and mathematics. And those are proven, and they use those, they get certifications in it, and then they're able to accomplish the outcomes that are necessary. After the other of industries have got frameworks, except for technology. The technology frameworks are very specifically geared towards the technologists, the frameworks that are out there for just let's just call it your everyday business leader. Then there isn't a framework for the everyday business leader. There are for plenty of technology. There's lots of frameworks for technologists and certifications for technologists, but there isn't a framework that helps empower business leaders. So I wrote this book as a culmination of 45 years of being in this industry to help take what we've learned to be successful, the breaking it down into, there's 4 components. We break it down into 4 components. 2 focused on the leader mindset. There's a digital mindset, innovation mindset. Coming into technology conversations with the right mindset is the foundation. And now you take that and you apply it, and there's 2 sets of the framework which are geared towards the organization. So with empowered business leaders, they now can affect change inside of a framework inside the organization. So it's a 4-part framework, TQ is. So hopefully that gives you kind of a good high level about the why I wrote this book. And it's to narrow that gap. I desperately want in this next chapter of my career, it is my second career, is to educate business leaders that this is the world that you're living in, become empowered, and have these if today, this is what we found, over 50% of our clients come in, well, actually it's more like 90%, get 50% grades. We grade them, we grade our clients we assess, we apply best practices, and 95% of our clients are failing grades because of the amount of things we kind of just described. They're purchasing technologies they don't need. They are overspending. Their expenses are much higher than the value that they're getting. The technologies that they have are not actually performing and giving them the outcomes. The amount of gap, that I call it the tech value gap, is huge. I want to narrow that. I believe, I'm a techno optimist, and I believe that this next age, an intelligent age, as well as the technologies we have today, can really drive significantly more value for the modern business. And they're not getting that value today. And that upsets me, because I know it gives us a bad name. It gives technology a bad name. It gives people to make excuses for why tech is not good. And I'm on the other side of it. It's a great tool when used in the right hands. And so that's why I've dedicated this next chapter of my life to taking these ideas and getting them to empower other business leaders.
Well, Jody, we're gonna have to bring you back because there's a lot there right now. So I was thinking, man, we can go another hour and a half on just what you just shared. And excited Go4CEO community, that'll be in the description. Order his book and get aligned, right, with kind of like my book, right? You said assess. I love that you started with assess because that's the first chapter of the book on my side. And so cool to hear that you align, which is the second chapter. You align it to the right services and tools, and they're overpaying and doing things that maybe they didn't realize, right? But then they had to take accountability, and you're showing them how to take accountability in their own business to line up the right technologies and services. And I love it, taking action at the end. But so I love the way that you've constructed this, mindset, right? And the way that you're getting into the second encore career within your own business. You've built a machine. You've built it over years of great, work ethic and involvement and education. And now you led towards now the information age going into the intelligence age. I'm super excited to hear and see you develop that, and this book that needs to be in people's hands to grow their understanding of kind of where we're at in this moment in time. And we're in 2025, ladies and gentlemen. So, all right, look, we don't have another 2 hours, which I'd love to have, but we end our interviews typically with CEO. So client experience, and I want you to think of it from the Blackline IT perspective, right? When that client is initially engaging with you from an experience standpoint, let's say in about 60 seconds, what's that value proposition look like?
Great. We call it the badass client experience.
Okay.
So that's how we call it internally, and it has very specific components. And at its core is that our team will care for you. The value is we lead with care. We're accountable for the work that we do. We are transparent in what we do and how we bill, and we are always leading with what's best for them as opposed to what's profitable for us. And we've demonstrated that over and over and over again, meaning if we're in a situation where we are and should be responsible for that, we're going to value the relationship over being profitable on whatever that transaction happens to be. That guiding principle has been with us from the very beginning, because if you do what's right and you care and you do what's right, now it sounds a little Pollyannish, but it is the truth. If you do what's right, and what right for us is we're going to look at, was it us or was it them? Was it our job to do something, or was it just the nature of business in their business? And we can show that. But you build trust through that. So they're going to experience trust, then they're going to be cared for. So trust comes over time, right? We first educate them. We go through that education so that when they look at the services that we're offering, they are now in charge to say, I'm going to get these services specifically, and they're going to give me these outcomes. I'm going to get counsel. I'm going to have proactivity. I'm going to have people looking at what we're doing on a regular basis and apply it to best practices. And when something goes wrong, you're going to be there, and we're going to serve with speed, because your business being down means money to you. And we recognize this exact same thing, which is if your business is down, we're going to get you back up and running. That's the experience. That's the badass experience, which is it's holistic. You can almost call it Zen, because that's the way which we approach it. And our clients can grow because technology is not in the way. Technology is just humming in the background. That's the experience.
I love it, like a fine-tuned engine. So
Yeah.
engagement, Jody, we didn't get a chance to get too much out. You gave us your philosophy of leadership and how you started learning to kind of develop others, right? And now you have a team around you that kind of helps you be on the business instead of in the business on a daily basis.
Mhm.
But engagement, tell us maybe another 60 seconds of, hey, with my vendors, I do this. With my employees, I do this. I do retreats with my clients, or I do special appreciation days. Like, what is a way that people can know, like, hey, this is how Jody engages?
Culture. So culture is king when it comes to both engaging with clients and also engage with my team. And it was by setting a bold initiative. So 2017, I coined something called the moonshot. Our moonshot is to be considered the best technology company to work for, the best, and to be recognized as such. and also to become the gold standard for technology in the small mid-size space. And then the third component is to expand to serve the underserved nationally. Okay, but the very first one is to be the best place to work. And that means care for this team. So that's by having it be on the mantle as an objective and the way that I see things, it drives every other decision about how I treat my people. And by treating my people the way that aligns with being the best place to work, every decision that has happened over the past 7 years has been within that lens. And that would be my recommendation. The way I engage with my team is through the lens of you're going to be treated the best that you've ever been treated, trained, equipped, guided, clarity in your roles. That is the way that you care. And from that comes the outcomes, and let's just call it the discretionary effort that is necessary to grow a company. Because I'm not going to drive it. I make them happy and secure and trained and equipped, and then they go out and then they change the world. And I pay them really well in order to do that.
I love it. I love it. So, look, not being a technologist, admittedly, I'm far from it. When you think about the operational excellence side, can you give us two or three tools in about a minute or so of the things that you're using now? Has it shifted to more AI tools? Do you continue to use the traditional CRMs? That's what I'm talking about. Is how are you running this business so effectively, so efficiently from an operational excellence standpoint?
Um, Twofold. One is once I relinquished the control of the operations of the business and put people in place to do it themselves and just give them vision, they picked the right tools. They found, once again, driving what it was that my vision, that I architected, of serving with speed, being proactive, the types of things that got us here. And because if I told you about what the tools are, the tools wouldn't matter because you wouldn't know any of the tools. It was more about the mindset. The mindset was let them drive and them come to me. And I'm saying, this is what I see. This is a challenge. Let's say, for example, we needed a metric to show that our team was performing at a very high level, but not be anecdotal, meaning we didn't want our customers to go, oh, you guys are pretty good. You're always there for us. We're like, I want to have data that backs up the fact that we are responding inside of our service level and our customers are happy with that, which required us to implement in our operations the technologies and the process and the policies to be sure that that data was collected and can now be shown to them and shown to the world that we got a 4.96 out of 5 approval rating of every one of our clients, and we get hundreds of those surveys every month. That is a driving indicator. That's an operational, right? That's an operational focus, right? And there's more and more, examples of that. So I would just take it from the mindset perspective. It's not necessarily the tool. It's more like, what is the outcome that I want? Am I putting people in place in order to accomplish that? And I'm giving them the vision of what I want to see so that we can tell the world that we're doing really, really great stuff.
All right, if you just listen to Jody, what I'm thinking he said is call Blackline IT and they'll give you the right way to operationally excellence your business. So that's what I just picked up on that one. So
I appreciate you saying that, because that really is, we're not selling technologies to sell technology.
for
We
sure.
are, we're enabler to transform people's lives. Like having technology work or not work is transformational for a business and for the people in it. And that's our mission. It is when you walk into our office, it's in big, transforming lives through digital technology. Everybody sees that every day. That's what we do. I feel a little bit like a true salesman here as I do that, but it's true.
You're evangelist, my friend, and that's
Yeah.
part of sales, right? You're evangelizing what your industry, what you've spent 45 years in, and pretty awesome stuff. Can you end with how do the people get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect with you or one of your guys to engage with Blackline?
Website, blacklineit.com. You could search us. We're headquartered in Naperville and Chicago. You could also contact me directly, jsj@blacklineit.com. I'm open to any and all conversations. That's my job right now. I've got a great team who's doing all the execution, great team who can deploy an incredible experience. My job is to help educate business leaders. That's what I want to do. I want to get in conversations. Where's your pain? What are you thinking about? Where do you want to go? What has been in the way, or what you think is in the way in order to get you there? I just want to be a resource. I love those conversations. I'm energized by them. And I want to help other business leaders get that strategic vision for tech, that they can now be the driver of technology strategy instead of vendors and technologists driving your strategy. Because we need you, business leader. You're talented, you're intelligent, you're creative, and we need to leverage that spirit, and then see what you have available to you, and then execute and do incredible innovative things.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, GO4CEO community, you've had an experience on this interview. I want you to take not only the shorts that we're going to create out of this, but the long format. Stop sometimes, assess where you're at, align yourself with a company like Blackline, take accountability, because you got to look in the mirror and say to yourself, okay, maybe I wasn't doing things the right way, and then take freaking action. Be a badass. What'd you call it? A badass what?
Badass client experience.
Badass client experience. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to the GO4CEO channel, and thank you, Jody, for being a part of the GO4CEO community. Appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's awesome. So thanks a lot for letting me talk.